Hi and welcome. This is going to be a little bit longer than normal, I fear. I am covering my board book. So, as you know, I just finished the last page, and so I have the outside cover to do, and I decided to do it all in one video. I've got this tissue paper that I bought from Simon Says Stamp, and it's different feel than the Tim Holtz. I think it's a little heavier. Maybe it has a little more grit to it too. But I'm going to use a piece of it to cover the front. And then I got something else planned for the back. But I'm going to be using some collage medium to adhere it. I'll put some collage medium down. I'll put the tissue on top and then put collage medium on top of it. And one thing I'm going to be using that I hardly ever use, but I'm going to be using a spray sealer just because it is a cover and I want to protect things. So that is something I'm going to be using. Not that you have got to do that, but I figure, well, if it's going to be handled more than that normal, I don't know. I use a matte sealer just in case you're wondering. It will be in the comments. I don't know if I'll have a link to it or not, but so I'm putting down some collage medium and I'm putting a fair amount. I'm not being chintzy with it. I want it to grab the page as it goes down, and I don't want it to dry overly quickly because collage medium, at least Tim Holtz collage medium, does dry pretty fast. And it's almost impossible to not get any wrinkles. At least me. Maybe it's just me, but I do have a hard time not getting any wrinkles in my tissue paper. But I try, and if it gets some, well, then it gets some. And some you can smooth out with your layer of collage medium that goes on top. See there, I'm just smoothing out some that are on the top edge. So yeah, there are still some little bit of imperfection there, but I'm okay with that. And it's up to you if you let this completely dry before you trim it. I sometimes do, I sometimes don't. But be aware that if you don't, your scissors are going to get a little gunky. I'm just giving a little bit of smoothing and removal of excess with my catalyst spreader, and just to kind of make it as smooth as possible. I was hoping I could just rip my edge, and there are little sanding blocks you can get that would just, take that right off. I didn't have any at my desk, and I just didn't feel like going and finding anything. So I just used my scissors and trimmed it that way. I just make sure I wipe them off pretty quickly so that I don't get dried collage medium on there. And this is also the time where you'll find any spots that didn't get quite sealed, or maybe it dried before you could get it on. I think I end up having a couple corners that did that with. Now, I did enjoy doing this board book. Um, I will probably do another one at some point, maybe not right away. Um, so we'll see. I have several board books waiting in the wings, but just not sure if I'm going to use them or not right now. Okay, so I've added, or I've trimmed, well, I actually am not quite done trimming, but I'm trimming all my little edges. And I do want to make sure it's dry before I add any inks or anything. I have to say I did have a little trouble adding some inks. I started with a stencil thinking, okay, I'm going to add some stenciling through, and I thought about deleting it, but because I don't like it, but I thought I'd at least show you what I had intended to do or had thought about doing. And but I do, because it had a finish of the collage medium, I could wipe it right off. And that's why I use the matte spray, because I felt like anything that I put on top of that could just be wiped off. So that's why I did that. I am adding a little bit of old paper just to kind of make it a little bit dingy. It doesn't cover like normally would on paper, but you can see it some. And then I do my stenciling. And I just, I like this stencil, but I like the reverse of it more than I do actual using it as a stencil, if you know what I mean. And so while I'm putting all the vintage photo on top, I am actually going to be using that as a reverse stenciling on top of it. And even then I kind of grunge that way up. See, I don't like that at all. So I am going to be taking something and wiping that off. But not getting it clean. I still want the grunginess of it. So now I'm going to take that stencil and do the reverse on top of it. And I guess I'm showing you this because you never really know what you're going to get. And so even when I do this, it's like, oh, well, I don't like that. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to change my thought. And I just kind of with my finger, move it around to get a just a old looking page. And then I dry it. And that really inspired me for the back. I have this square that I've cut on my Cricut, and I'm going to be using that to hold my focal image. And first up is some old paper. I pretty much always cover anything white with, well, if it's not getting another color, it will at least get old paper. And keeping in mind that the tissue paper that I put down is very busy, I'm not going to do a whole lot on this little frame because I don't want it to fight with the background. But I am adding some vintage photo to the outside edge as well as the inside edge. I'm going to do a little bit of stamping, and I think these are both from Eccentric. And I'm going to stamp with some Versamark, so I'm going to emboss in gold. And I have put down, I should have thought about it first, but I remember I put the old paper down. My rule is always emboss first, then add your inks, but I hadn't really thought what I was going to do yet. So I do have a little issue with the gold, and so I just clean it up as much as possible, and it doesn't look perfect, but I embrace imperfection, so I'm okay with it. And I'm just showing you my matte finish. And do that outside because it really is not good for it inside. And it dries real quick, but I sometimes help it along drying. Now, I've already stamped that, but I'm letting it dry a little more before I try to emboss it, but I think I'm going to give it a go right here. So it wasn't too bad, but not great. I think I'm debating whether that's going to be okay or if I want to redo it, but I'm okay with it. And I'm just trying to keep the frame simple. I'm going to be adding a couple pieces of ephemera to the frame, but before I do that, I'm going to be botching up a little more gold embossing. And I say that because I'm going to be adding some gold embossing to the cover, which hasn't had enough time to really dry sufficiently. I mean, that matte spray does dry, but it's still going to not be static clingy enough for the, oh, I should have used my static bag. Why didn't I think of that? Use your static bag. So I'm just adding, I'm using that dot stamp. It's actually from Mr. Rabbit. So it's a great dot stamp if you need one. I have a couple, but I do like the Mr. Rabbit dot stamp. So I'm just dotting where it might come out of the frame and a little under the frame. And if it's got some areas where it's got way too much because of the static cling involved and everything going on underneath it, I just kind of remove some of it. And I don't really worry about how clean the dots are. Honestly, when it's done, you have to look pretty close and intentionally to see that, oh, there's a little bit of embossing outside the dots, because the dots are pretty strong and solid, so you see those and you don't notice the other bits that are there much. You have to be looking for it, and if you're looking for it, I say, you know, you're paying attention too much. So that doesn't look like great dottage yet, but I think once it gets the frame on and then the ephemera that goes in a couple corners, it looks good. And you can always shine your embossing in the light, and you'll be able to tell when you have a spot that hasn't really embossed completely. Doesn't shine the same. Okay, so now my frame comes back on, and so that some dots are on the outside, some dots are on the inside. I'm going to add a couple numbers down in the left corner. One's going to tuck underneath the frame and one's going to go on the frame. And I'm just going to be careful that they don't the tops don't line up. Like right now they kind of do look like they do, but they won't once I glue them on. This is a little digital download. It's butterflies, and they look like little collages. I really liked those. And you don't really have to collage it because it's already collaged. And then a little flower up top in the corner. And glue is going to stick just fine to the spray if you use the spray. Must have bumped my camera. And lastly, the butterfly that goes in the center. And I do have to say I love that cover. All right, now I'm going to go on to the back. And I had thought about doing some collage pieces on the background, but I end up leaving it totally collage free, so the pieces you see on the right will not even be there. Before I do anything, I kind of learned my lesson. I am doing my stamping for my embossing. And if you have watched any of the others, you know that when I prep my book, I sand off anything of color, and then I add, I think I did 2 coats of gesso, white gesso. So it's all prepped and ready for just about anything. I'm not sure I would do the same next time because it seems like most of the time I did cover it with paper, which I did like doing. So I might just sand and not prep with gesso. If you're going to cover with paper, you don't need to do the gesso. But if you're just going to ink, I just didn't like how it accepted the ink, I think is my problem. And so I did cover with paper most of the time. So I've stamped the whole back with my my stamp pad, Versamark. I always forget that one. And then I'm just running my gold embossing on it. And I didn't use my thing again, my anti-static, although I shouldn't have needed to, but there are a few places here I clean up with a brush, but again, I'm not really caring about perfection. And I'm using my larger brush here because I was like, what happened to my small brush that I just had a few minutes ago? And I did find it later on the floor. That's why I couldn't find it on my desk. I'm like, am I blind? Where did it go? I am going to use a different technique to cover the back, which I should have mentioned as I was doing the front. I think I would have used this method for the front had I thought of it. And I got a lot to emboss here. Speeding it up for you so it doesn't take so long. So I'm going to take my vintage photo ink pad and just kind of rub it across and spray it down and then just move it around with my fingers. You could use a brush just to kind of make it look old and not the same. So there's going to be some places with more ink and some with less. And that is what I was going for. That was much easier than the whole process on the front. I should have mentioned that as doing the front. Wait till you saw what I did in the back. I'm going to add some to the edges. And I'm going to use the same spray mat because I think it might spray off. And it leaves a nice shine for protection. I am going to leave the edge raw. I thought about doing some sort of taping, but I decided just to leave it raw. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't. Give me a thumbs up if you did. See you later.